Kia ora. In this video I'm going to be looking at this column of data which has ratings from 1 to 4 where students judge themselves as either tired, 1, or inspired, 4, with 2 and 3 in between. I'm going to see how many female students chose 1 and then 2 and then 3 and then 4, which will help me generate a graph of data just for female students who answered this question. So to do that I'm going to use the countifs function. So just coming down the bottom here, find an empty cell. I'm going to type equals countifs and open a bracket. So the spreadsheet now is asking me to select some data, and within that data select a type of response. So I'm going to select in the tired inspired column all the data I can, and that should tell the spreadsheet check this column, press comma, and now within that data only count for me the numbers of responses that were 1. Now I'm not going to type 1, it's better to choose a response that is 1. So here's a 1, I'm going to highlight that and hit comma. Now the spreadsheet wants me to highlight another set of data, and in that case I want gender data. So I'm going to highlight now all the gender data and then tell the computer just look at the females within that data. So I've highlighted that column, now hit comma, and within that data I want to select any female response. So I'll just choose that one, close my bracket, and I'm going to hit enter. So we'll just recap before I do that. I've told the spreadsheet to look at the data in this column and then count how many people did response number 1, which is cell F75. But I also said when you do that, also check in this column, which is over here for gender, and tell me how many of the females chose 1 as their response. So when I hit enter, there were 6 people who were female and in this column chose number 1. So I might just put up here for myself, tired, inspired. These were the people who chose 1 and these were the females. So I might want to do that now for these other responses, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I want to know in the column of tired, inspired, how many chose 2 and were female. There's a couple of ways I could do that. I could take the formula that's in this cell and I could drag and bring it across here and it will operate all over and over again. But there's a problem with that. If you check up here, it says F2, F229. When I come to here, it's G2, G229. Everything has shifted across one column. So it's not actually checking this column anymore, it's now checking this column. So there's a problem there, so I don't want to do that. So my first option is to come back into this column, and I could still drag it, but I need to freeze some of the columns. So if I was to put a $sign here, and here, and then here, and then here, if I start dragging across now, it'll only look in column F from 2 to column F229. And no matter how much I drag, it won't shift that column. I still want it to be response, but I don't want it to be response number 1. That's what that would be. I'm going to leave that a minute. If I now tell it to look in the gender column, I want to freeze the gender column. I need to freeze the number and the letter. Now that will freeze just the gender column from number 2 to 229. I also want to freeze female as the response, which is what this one is. So right now, if I start dragging across, I will freeze all of those columns, but there's a problem with my number 1 selection. So if I come across to here, that was number 1, F75. Now it's gone to G75, H75, I75. So the problem here is that this one should reference number 2 in this response. This one should be counting all the 3s. This one should be counting all the 4s. So how do I do that? Well, back here, I'm going to delete G75. It's now waiting for me to choose anything in this column, which is a number 2. I'll choose that number 2, hit enter. Okay, so there were 43 females who chose number 2 in that column. What about here? I should be checking all the number 3s. So this is the number that should be a 3. Get rid of it. Now highlight any 3 in that column. That one will do. Hit enter. Now it's counted all the females who chose 3. And lastly over here, I don't want I75. I want to be in column F. And I want to choose a response that is number 4. So get rid of that. Now choose a 4 in this column. There's one. Hit enter. And look at this. I've now counted all the females in the tied and spied column who wrote number 1, and then number 2, number 3, and number 4. So to do that, I use the countifs option. So what else? How else can I do that? Let's get rid of all those. The other way is a bit slower. It's essentially do the same thing over and over. I could go equals countifs, highlight the tied and spied column, comma. I want to now count all the 2s, and I want to check in the gender column by highlighting all the gender responses down to the bottom, comma, only female responses, close the bracket, hit enter, and I should get the same response as I did before. So I could do that repeatedly cell by cell, which takes some time, or I could just drag this over and then go play with all these numbers here. Notice that I froze the columns first. So it's up to you however you do that. You still need to do some editing either way, but it's the countifs function which lets you look at more than one column and one type of response in each column.